There is a loyal American who has devoted his life in service to our country. He has served his country and served his country and served his country and served his country. Miss Jones, check my calendar, please. Who is my next appointment with?
The top man from the FBI, sir.
I thought Ephraim Zimbalist was coming with you.
No, sir. Your appointment is with J. Edgar Hoover.
Oh, yes. I hope he remembers to come. The man is getting very forgetful lately.
He's here, sir.
Send him in. Come in. Come in if you can. It's good to see you. Sit down.
Good to see you, Mr. President.
I asked you here today to discuss the age of certain FBI personnel.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, Mr. Hoover, that there isn't a man on your staff who hasn't had a prostate operation? Some of them are past the age of mandatory retirement. Precisely, Mr. Hoover. And that is why, of course, I wanted to see you to discuss with you the matter of retirement.
Why, that's ridiculous. Why, you're still a young man.
Not my retirement, Mr. Hoover. I'm talking frankly about your retirement.
Why, Mr. Roosevelt, I can't believe you're saying that.
I am President Nixon. If you're going to call me by someone else's name, at least pick a Republican.
I know why you're mad, but I'm doing the best I can. And if you'll just give me a little more time, I promise you I'll get Dillinger.
You've already got Dillinger. You told me the story 300 times. The lady in red, remember? The movie theater, remember? Think, Mr. Hoover. Think for just a moment. Think.
Calm down, Mr. Nixon. I know there's a lot of pressure on you with Ike being so sick. You might be president yourself someday.
I am the president. How many times must I tell you that I am in charge? Do I make myself clear, Mr. Zimbalist?
He's not coming until next week, remember? My name's Hoover, the same as yours.
At this point, I don't care who you think I am. I can be all of them at one time. I don't care. You are going. You are finished. You are finito. It is all over for you. Out, out. It's time to hang up your holster, sit in a little rocking chair, rock and rock back and forth, back and forth. Your career in the FBI is over.
I don't think it is.
And what exactly do you mean? You don't think it is? The president just told you that it is.
I just thought the country might like to see some of the pictures and documents I have.
Don't bother, Mr. Hoover. I am simply shocked. If you think for one moment that you can blackmail the President of the United States, you've got another thing coming. Let me see those pictures. Oh, my. Fakes. They're all fakes. Where did you get these things? I thought I threw them away long ago.
You did, but you know that old Irish cleaning lady who works here?
You mean Kathleen?
Sharon Bigora, isn't it a fine day we're having, Mr. Nixon?
My God, you're Kathleen!
I'll be going now. You be sure and give my best to Lady Bird.
I deny God, creator of heaven and earth, and I adhere to thee, and believe in me.
Kiss!
goat!
Hey fam! Welcome to Pokes for Progress. I'm Reverend Aaron. This here's a Monday What the Fuck. You were listening to this Richard Nixon Superstar by David Fry. He does all these different characters on this here record. Right now what we're listening to is the Ottawa side of the Ottawa Jihad split. But welcome. I've got a number of things kind of queued up today. Some weird art video stuff, some skateboarding, some cool punk rock music videos, a whole bunch of I'm going to play a lot of really hardcore fucking punk rock today. Like crustcore and power violence and some mid-tempo punk rock and oi and shit. But I got a bunch of records picked out that I'm really stoked on. And we're also going to take a look at Labor Video. Is a really, really awesome YouTube channel that's based out of the Bay Area, and they're centrally focused on what the leftist labor union community and stuff in the Bay Area are up to. And they put out a video today that's all about the Oakland General Strike and the history of the Oakland General Strike, which is just amazing in the 40s. And so we're going to watch that video and a bunch of other stuff and play records and whatever. And so check out this here Ottawa song. What I want to do is I got some other stuff queued up for good funsness. We'll turn this up. I'm going to switch over to here.
of a millisecond after the explosion, and at a distance of 60 miles, the light from the fireball of a single megaton thermonuclear device is 30 times brighter than the midday sun. This little boy has received severe retinal burns from an explosion 27 miles away.
Asphalt from Japan. I actually got to open for these guys, MR Red, in my basement, the Ryland Street basement. Eversquelch opened for Asphalt. It was fucking fantastic. They're so incredibly good live. Yeah, Asphalt, yo. Straight out of Japan. This is actually this is on Prank Records. But yeah, that's Asphalt from Japan, and I just realized I need to change a camera setting here. Oops, no. Do that, no. And then we'll come back to that. Because it was doing that flash and blinky thing when it's set on auto. But yeah, okay. So that was Asphalt from Japan. The video that I have queued up here, I haven't watched it. It's, oh shoot. Hold on one second. It's basically about a bunch of, it's an arty video. I'm sorry, the name of it's totally slipping me, and I just want this stupid ad to pass before I cast it over. 15 artists whose hyper-realistic pieces will blow your mind. So, let's get it casted over there. You know, while I am not a maybe good artist, I do liken myself as an artist, and I like to create art, and so I like to see people who are really good at it do their thing too. And if this is going to blow my mind because it's so hyper-realistic, I'm definitely down to check it out. Once I see that it's up on the screen, I'll pause it and switch it over so we can all see it and whatnot. Okay, there we go. Pause. Boom. There we go. Why is it not playing? There we go. Among them are these uncannily realistic babies. Jesus Christ. They're made using silicone molds. Number 2. Carol A. Foreman is renowned for her human sculptures. She makes casts of her models, okay? Then uses resin, bronze, and paint to make them look real. Number 3. Walter Casotto is an artist based in London. Walter has made prosthetics for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And Game of Thrones. Ivan Hu is an artist in Singapore who makes hyper-realistic pet portraits. Jesus Christ. He uses pastels and acrylics to paint all kinds of animals. Edgar Askelvik makes sculptures of celebrities. And then what, he nukes them? Oh, wow. He made a basket-themed sculpture for Rihanna's 30th birthday. Number 6. Danielle Falstrom paints photorealistic mylar balloons. He replaces traditional with graffiti letters, balloons. Oh, that's fucking cool. Daniel brings real balloons as a reference for his murals. Huh. Immortal Masks is a mask and creature company in Hollywood. Its masks are made using high-grade silicone. It resembles skin and helps make the pieces realistic. Michael Salikoff makes freakishly realistic dolls. He molds each part from polymer clay. These are cool. And adds the small details by hand. Number 9. Pedro Acosta is a Venezuela-based tattoo artist. Holy shit, that's fucking dope. He designs realistic tattoos of eyes. Okay, that's his thing. If you want eyes on you, this is the guy to go to. Many people ask for tattoos of their loved ones' eyes. Interesting. Number 10. Nahel Gonzalez uses a tablet and Photoshop to make photorealistic. He works layer by layer to build the piece. Wow. Now, Hall says creating each piece takes a lot of patience. Yeah, I bet. Number 11. Kyung Ah Kim makes realistic action figures. Hey! Korean artist has been sculpting for 13 years. Jesus, she's good. She seems to like Brad Pitt a lot. Number 12. Omar Ortiz is a Mexican artist who paints realistic portraits. Yo, that's fucking cool. His pieces are made with oil paint. He says the hardest part is getting the skin tones right. Yeah, I bet. Wow, is that Frida Kahlo? Number 13. Ruben Orozco Loza makes mini sculptures that look exactly like people. He uses silicone, resin, marble, and wood. Most importantly, he also uses... Whoa. Number 15. Anna Halden Mall's paintings look just like photos. She wants to portray women as strong and proud in her paintings. Each oil painting takes 3 to 4 months to paint. Yeah, that's not surprising. Dude. Yeah, that was cool. I'm glad we watched that. Looks like it's you and me, MR Red, and one other person who's not saying much. I have a friend here in Reno who should look up his art. His name's Greg Allen. And he does photorealistic style stuff of like broke down fucking bits of Nevada, dude. And his style is just amazing. That kind of reminded me of his work. This is a band called Suppression. Some of the best frickin' hardcore noise shit of the mid to late 90s, in my opinion. One more. called Razors is the song. Razors never die. These guys were from Richmond, Virginia. Insert. '95 this came out.
Only the privileged few, but you can get away with anything, provided that we let the government to. Provided that we let the government to. Only the privileged few, so you can get away with anything, provided that we let the government to. Provided that we let. Provided that we let the government to. Provided that we let the government to. Provided that we let the government to. Provided that we let. Provided that we let. Hatred to policemen forcing you. Don't stop murdering. Wherever I will try to pass upon you. Don't stop murdering. Respect, submission, but it's wrong with these words and you don't stop murdering. Wherever I will try to pass upon you. Don't, no you don't, no you don't. You know she love the police.
Yes! Let's do that again. Let's just do that again. That's okay. We can do that again. This is acceptable. Wait, I don't know. We'll do this again. Oh, I see what's happened here. Anyway. You know what I wanted to... So I got two videos here, actually queued up. One is Trojan Horses. It's a new video by Bronx Blogger. And then, of course, we have the 74th anniversary of the Oakland General Strike video from Labor Video that I want to play. But first, I think it's important to... I think society needs to know... how well actual Hello Kitty instruments work, especially with like heavy metal musicians and shit.
Cyber Monday has arrived, so get the
Oh,
5G America's
jeez.
been waiting for.
Shut up, you stupid.
Unlimited plans start at just $35. With entertainment the whole family will love. Switch now and save
Hey, whatever.
$700
Switch or
on
do
Galaxy
something. I'm
S20
sorry.
Plus,
Ads.
Only on Verizon.
What are you not? What are you gonna do? That's the channel, Loudwire.
How about 2112? Let's get right into the song.
The back down, duct tape some of the toms to here. We can't really fix the big gaping holes inside the toms.
Definitely kept blast beat on Hello Kitty drum kit.
No! The guitar!
Now I have you with me under my power. I love your song now with every hour. Look in my eyes and you.
Yes, that is the Zach Wilde and playing a Hello Kitty guitar, doing Iron Man.
Even a banjo picker, you can do some banjo picking.
Is it cheating if you use a bucket with your Hello Kitty drum kit? I don't know. I think it's cheating if you use a bucket with your Hello Kitty kit, dude. But yeah, go ahead and do that with a toy guitar. Dare ya? Yep. I don't know who that dude is, but he's not fucking around at all. I don't know who this person is either. They're not fucking around much. And if that's not a Hello Kitty drum kit in the background, then it's totally cheating. I think I kind of want that Hello Kitty. I want that Hello Kitty keyboard. Straight up. No apologies. I would use it. So there you go. some Loudwire video of people playing a bunch of Hello Kitty instruments, which you know is, of course, something you didn't know you needed to see, but now you have, and you're, I hope, happy about it. But I also have this 7-inch queued up, and I'm not totally 100% positive I have it on the right speed, but this is Charles Bronson. It's a split with Ice Nine. It's from Bovine Records. I hope I have it on the right speed. Sounds like it. Definitely not the Charles Bronson of the movies. I'm surprised they never got sued. But you're going to go with a theme? And I'm going to play Kojak next. Yeah. That's all you get for Charles Bronson, but this is Kojak, and I hope I have it on the right speed. It's like a manila envelope that they screen printed on. Kojak. Now this is Icons of Filth right here. get a better look at that Kojak too. This Icons is early 80s. Doesn't have the year on it, but Icons of Filth was early 80s anarcho punk, British anarcho punk. Play one more.
Tattered khaki in foreign mud for the World War cameras and levers of blood. Rifle with bayonet fixed by his side. His glory permitted, but his life denied! I'm poor and I'm weird, baby. You got no time for me. I'm poor and I'm weird, baby. You got no time for me. I'm poor and I'm weird, baby. You got no time for me. I'm poor and I'm weird, getting hit about a second. I used to have somebody that put my photo in the spinning. I was talking to a lady, telling something out of my own. Think about it, don't you now? Talking to the wall. I think that one that I can't. It's what my parents told me to do. Had a bed on my head when I was just a little kid. I'm poor and I'm weird, baby. You got no time for me. I'm poor and I'm weird, baby. You got no time for me. I'm poor and I'm weird, baby. You got no time for me. I'm poor and I'm weird, baby. You got no time for me. Attention to I never see someone that weeps to do nothing. They kind of stop, nigga. You got no right. I see the things that we the I see the things that we the you see that you can never marry. It's a parent in the straight. Tell me I can't answer the parent. I can't get on the head when I was just a little kid.
And this is the Pressure Point side. The song's called Chaos for Skins. I'm going to go ahead and get into that Bronx Blogger video next, too. come on. This thing, man, it doesn't want to connect. Hold on a sec, though. We'll get it. For some reason, not connecting. I don't know why. And every time it disconnects, unlinked, okay. So let's try again. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. At least we have music playing, right? There it goes. So this is Bronx Blogger from, you guessed it, the Bronx. He put out a lot more videos, like 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. He's really stopped putting them out so frequently over the last year. He's done a couple over the last few months. And he just keeps an eye on what's going on with the far right online. He follows them where they go, whether it's Parler, Reddit, or 27chan, or whatever the hell it is. And I've always really appreciated his analysis of them. So, yeah, this is the Bronx Blogger's newest video, and it is called Trojan Horses. Please give him a sub.
Seasons came and changed the time.
And I don't think it needs much more explanation other than that. I'll let it play. That's obviously Nick Fuentes in Baked Alaska, walking through a shopping mall. Just the thought of that alone is gross. These pieces of shit.
You hit the ground, bang, bang, that awful sound. Bang, bang, I used to shoot you down. Music played and people sang. Just for me, the church bells rang. Now he's gone, I don't know why. And till this day, sometimes I cry. He didn't even say goodbye, he didn't take the time to lie. Bang, bang. He shot me down, bang, bang. I hit the ground, bang, bang. That awful sound, bang, bang. My baby shot me down.
Yo, let's go. Hey, come here. What's going on, guys?
Hey.
Yo,
Let's go.
why do you love Fortnite?
What was that?
Let's go. Jaden beat the crap out of Magar, grudge match. Yeah, that's true. Yo, what? You guys voting Trump 2020?
No.
What? Why not? Who are you voting for?
Because he's a racist.
That's
awesome, though. That's great.
Look at this T-pose, though.
God, we gotta
Trump supporters here.
You got 2 Trump supporters. Let's go. 6 million Trump supporters. Yes. What's up? Why? Wait. Why? No, we're just curious. Why don't you like Trump? I just want to ask.
Because he has said as the leader of our country are not.
Why do you think he's a racist?
Because he's also. I don't think he's necessarily.
Let's go.
I just think the things he said is not things that a leader of our country should say.
Like what?
I think that
Let's go.
I don't really know.
Oh, wah. Things he said about women. You gonna cry about it?
You're so edgy by being a hardcore fucking sexist piece of shit.
Women need to stay in the kitchen. Like,
Let's go.
What's wrong with that?
I mean, these are dudes in their like
Women need to stay in
20s, 30s. I don't know how old Baked Alaska is. I think Baked Alaska is like in his 30s. Nick Fuentes is younger. But what are you doing talking to teenage girls about being in the kitchen and shit, dude? In the mall. He's walking around the mall live streaming and talking to random teenage kids about fucking being in the kitchen and what women should do. It's fucking gross, man. Gross.
27. I'm 22. I'm 17.
Doesn't matter, dude. You're.
Look, man.
God.
That's a compliment. Guy Fieri is a hero.
Guy Fieri's epic. Yes, thank you.
So what you saw in that video was a example broadly of a phenomenon that I've examined regarding the way in which the alt-right, neo-Nazi, white nationalist movement is similar to an organization like, or at least uses means of recruitment that are somewhat similar to organizations like Scientology, for example, which is probably a more mainstream model of a modern cult. You could probably apply this to even the more extreme sects of evangelical Christianity, in terms of the way that they try to lure people in, or rather, well, you could say they try to lure people in, but also that, when the first image, when I saw this video, that came to my mind was the Trojan horse. That's why I chose the name of this video essay to be the Trojan horses, because I've been watching. Maybe I guess you could probably track the alt-right further back than Gamergate or 2015, the Trump campaign, which were two movements that they kind of glommed onto.
But that's the moment it really kicked off and became a super solidified thing in Gamergate, you know?
I saw them trying to do this infiltration tactic into an already existing movement. So very similar to Scientology or evangelicalism, the alt-right white nationalist configuration has a person that speaks your language, a person that speaks to your interest. That's what this video is a really great example of, is that you are seeing Nick Fuentes with the Fortnite hoodie and all the like gamer talk to the girls, and Baked Alaska with his kind of like, hello fellow kids, like dressing like a teenager when he's extremely too old to be presenting Zoomer energy that I'm aware of. It is literally just the exact same talking points. If you trace back to, it's not a coincidence that David Duke was part of the alt-right, particularly at the very beginning and during the Charlottesville era. He was publicly held up in the alt-right movement, kind of in the way that Reagan was held up by the Tea Party as being a founding father figure of their politics.
Yeah, he's kind of a mentor figure in a way.
White nationalism has not grown.
Although none of them would admit it.
David Duke. It rebranded. Exact same language, exact same ideology, exact same dialectic. Additionally, David Duke was meant to be an update of the original Nazi movement in Germany, maybe like 30 or 40 years before David Duke came up. David Duke was like supposed to be a reinvention of white nationalism for that 70s, 80s era. And then before him during...
Duke was like trying to be sort of yuppie version of the Klan. You know, that was like David Duke's thing. And he is a bridge, like that kind of... Whether the two camps would like this or not, he really is a bridge between that sort of 1970s, 1980s Klan, like Bronx Blogger is saying, and the connective tissue to the sort of evolution into the alt-right, because he was the first one who was like, oh, we're not this thing, we're not that thing. He didn't want to, he was separating himself from the neo-Nazi boneheads at the time who were hardcore, like, yo, we're Nazis, Sieg Heil, and we hate N-words and F-words and, you know, like all that kind of just way over the top rhetoric and language. And David Duke was the one who was like, oh no, I wear a suit and tie and I have a nice haircut and stuff, which is really the model that later groups like, you know, Identity Europa took on. And even in some way in the beginning, the Proud Boys just looked like a bunch of like pissed off angry thugs all the time now. But in the beginning, they were still trying to have that clean cut. We're just, what do you mean? You know, where I've stood, you know, face to face with Baked Alaska when he was with Proud Boys and Identity Europa and Oakland and shit. You know, dude carted out a teenager who happened to be black, and he goes, "How can I be a Nazi?" Baked Alaska goes, "How can I be a Nazi if this is my friend?" And I'm like, the reason you're a Nazi, dude, is because you're standing with those dudes back there that got De Goyim no signs, and they got, you know, KEK flags, KEK flags. Was just an altercation on a Nazi flag. Like, you're hanging out with literal Nazis and white nationalists and shit. That's why I think you're a Nazi. And you carting out a black person and going, look, how can I be a Nazi because I'm standing next to this dude? Wow, man, that's so racist as fuck. But I kind of rambled. But yeah, David Duke was really the beginning, I think, of that. He was more openly racist than they are today, but like he was the he was trying to be like, you know, the suburban Klan, you know, which now his ancestors or his descendants are now these two dipshits walking through the mall talking to teenage kids and filling their head with sexist, racist garbage. Anyway.
During the post-war era, it was George Lincoln Rockwell who was the guy who made
the American Nazi Party
relatable. That's the danger. Is for, and it's very hollow. It's not like they're very convincing to the average person who is aware, even in the most passing sense of the politics of the alt-right or trad calf or whatever number of rebrandings that they have gone through in order to white nationalists, Nazis, they do not like getting found out. And when they can no longer lampshade, which is a term that I originally heard mentioned by Emily Yukis in regards to an interview where she tried to get Gavin McInnes to say the first 14 words without him seeming to have a deep understanding of what that was as a shibboleth for Nazism, for modern Nazism. So, Nick Fuentes and Baked Alaska here are looking for normies to red pill. This is their language. This is their vernacular for groiping or whatever. They are looking for people that are not going to know the slang that they use to lampshade their motivations. There will be the most powerful recruiting tool for any cult is to have a thin layer of compassionate or progressive language when trying to attract moderates. I remember the first time that I started to see white nationalists trying to subvert or infiltrate the skeptic community. They spoke to skeptics in the terms of race realism. Whereas, for example, if you look at the different strains or tendencies within white nationalism, if they were trying, and to the extent which they have tried to infiltrate white evangelicalism, when that was the prime mover of white nationalism.
No, they won that fight.
Someone like a David Duke
Big
or
time.
Jared Taylor in.
Right.
That generation has aged out. And they have made the decision of whether or not they're in or out for the Jewish question, right? They made their decision. The majority of people who would have joined up on the back of Jared Taylor or David Duke did so a long time ago, and the leftovers now have decided that they are going to couch their racism in the libertarian style dog whistles of mainstream conservatism, right? They're not going to go all the way. They're going to, and probably, it's probably not even conscious. It's probably deep inside their psyche that they really don't believe they're racist, blah, blah, blah. So they're not willing to follow, David Duke or Jared Taylor out into the wilderness, where they have to be honest about how they feel about these groups. Furthermore, okay, Baked Alaska, Nick Fuentes, they know the language. They know the language of that mall. They know the language of IRL streaming is not a format that was invented by young Nazis. It is just another of the million things that they infiltrate or subvert. They are generally projecting, when they talk about the subversive nature, the claims they make about the subversive nature of Jewish people. Because historically, Nazis are the masters of how do you do fellow young people, how do you do fellow kids. And they backdoor into your Gamergate grievances, and they backdoor into your men's rights grievances. And I mean, if you look at Chris Cantwell used to be a run-of-the-mill MRA, men's rights activist, who was bitching about like fathers' rights, not in the earnest sense, but fathers' rights in the language of the reactionary MRA political movement, right? Because there are real parental issues for men and fathers that should be evaluated honestly. But we're talking about men's rights as a fig leaf for latent right-wing misogyny. Cantwell did not gatekeep Nazis. And these Nazis like Roosh and the more ideological types, they infiltrated his community. They Trojan horsed on his talking points about men's rights and anti-feminism. And it seems like for most of these groups, misogyny, racism, and homophobia, if you have a seed of that in your community, then you already have softened the soil for Nazis to infiltrate and subvert, to do their mimicry, to slide in under the veil of shared concern. So, bam, MRAs get infiltrated by Nazis. The movement gets poisoned, they extricate the converts, they move on. The Sargonite skeptics, right, get infiltrated by...
Oh, come on.
Gamergate grievance, oh, we care about blah, 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 the pausing of video games and feminism and blah, blah, blah. They don't give a shit about that. As a matter of fact, if you examine the post-Gamergate alt-right, they bitch about how video games are a Jewish distraction to keep men from going out and socializing and getting laid and having kids, the standard talking points. So what they do is they get in there, they convert as many people as possible, and what they do is then extricate the converts by telling them, you thought feminists were the problem. You're wrong, the Jews. You thought that capitalism was the problem. This is the Nazbol thing, right? They come in with the anti-capitalist talking points to these more reactionary Stalinist type communists. The more reactionary end of MLs, not all MLs, but they go towards like the Jason Unruho. I can't pronounce the guy's fucking name.
Unruhe.
They go to that the misogynist, chauvinist end of lefty pole and go, you think your problem is capitalism. Ooh, we agree on that, but then time to extricate the converts. Time to extricate the converts. Time to categorize, right? Like, okay, you thought the problem was bourgeoisie. You know who's more bourgeoisie than anybody? The Jews. You know, you thought the problem were capitalists. Well, capitalism is just a Jewish scam. This is how they use the language. This is the scam. They fucking infiltrate and extricate. They scorch the fucking earth behind them so that the only group left, the only language that you are left, the only frame that you can look through the picture of power and oppression is Jewish power oppressing, exploiting, and subverting the natural supremacy of the white race. This is the scam. If they, because obviously Baked Alaska and Nick Fuentes are very, very incompetent,
right?
Especially when trying to pander to an audience of young ladies, they are obviously failing to red pill these young ladies.
Word.
But I'll give you another example. Not everyone from Trad Cath was like a legit Catholic before it went down, but apparently Faith Goldie was already a long time deep in the faith Catholic. And of course, you know, she was a right-wing Catholic, so it already contained a lot of those bigotries. It had traditionalism already backloaded into it. So it was, excuse me for 1 second. It was primed. They had already softened the soil for infiltration and subversion. Infiltrate and extricate. So, Faith Goldie is a reactionary Christian. Rand Paul and a handful of other trad Cathy Nazis pop up with the talking points that sound, hello, fellow Catholics. And by the time they're done, they have Faith Goldie saying the 14 words and conceding the framing of Nazism, the framing of the movement, a frame of Jewish power attacking naturally justified white supremacy. So all I can really do when I look at stuff like this is to remember that Nazis don't change their tactics, they just recalibrate.
Word.
They just recalibrate.
That's good.
How they approach you, not why.
Right.
So if
Straight up.
the Nazbols are not gate kept out of your community,
there we go.
If the reactionary pole version of Amprim that isn't actually Amprim, which is basically eco-fash,
Word.
veiling and fig leafing and Trojan horsing as Amprim
Right.
is not gate kept out of your community.
There we go.
you will have softened the soil for them
That's
to
right. That's right.
infiltrate and
Ah, it's so good.
and in the extrication, annihilate the legitimacy of your group's beliefs.
Yeah.
To even the remainder, so much damage will have been done that your earnest political values will be tinged. The best thing to do is to make sure that the base of your ideology does not leave space for bigotry, and even the smallest millimeter of the door of your group of people united by your beliefs cannot be left open to Nazi mimicry and fellow kids rhetorical games. If you can do that, then you can deflect their infinite number of Trojan horses.
Awesome. Thank you, Bronx Blogger. Yeah, he's so right. Like, what was it? It's so that, people, they'll infiltrate our circles, as he said, right? And use these talking points, anti-capitalist talking points and whatever. And then they say stuff that's really problematic and is counter-socialist. and then people come to you, well, like, so-and-so said this and they're socialist like you. And so you obviously you believe this shit. And it doesn't matter, because now you're having a conversation. You're saying, no, wait, I don't believe in that thing. When the talking point that Nazbol or whoever these other people, these infiltrators that he's talking about, have implanted in our conversation, now we're responding to it. And again, we're all talking about that thing. That's a success for them. And I think really the best way to defend yourself against that is to be a very well-researched and well-read socialist. So that you can spot the fake version of it. When it comes along in a big giant socialist truck and then pops out with some fucking real problematic shit, you can spot it right off the bat. Okay, yeah, that's not falling in line with what I know to be the history of this movement. And so, yeah, I just really appreciate Brock's Blogger, and that was a fucking great video. But what I have queued up here, I'm going to play a couple songs. We'll do a short set of some garage rock mod stuff, and then I want to play this other video about the 74th anniversary of the general strike in Oakland. But I got this queued up. This is the Pretty Things. Big Boss Man is the name of the song.
Wow, you hands are had a date with her. Sorry, 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 sorry that I didn't get last night. Just why? Sorry, 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 sorry that I didn't get last night. I didn't get last night. I didn't get last night.
And here we go. On the 74th anniversary of the Oakland General
This is
Strike.
Steve Zeltzer with Workweek. 74 years ago, the last general strike happened in Oakland, California. And today, as labor councils around the country and even the Vermont State AFL-CIO have called for a general strike if Trump does not leave office and tries to do a coup, the issue of general strikes and what they are and what happened 74 years ago is important for working people today. And joining us is Gifford Hartman. He's a researcher and labor historian who has been covering the Oakland General Strike, really walks every year as part of Labor Fest, and is very knowledgeable about the Oakland General Strike.
It's really important to give a little bit of the background. So this is 1946. It's in the post-World War II period. The war ended in 1945, as everyone knows. And immediately, there was a wave of strikes. And the strikes really, went across the country, covered almost every work sector. And they really began in 1945, and perhaps we could say they really peaked in 1946. And then there were some other changes that happened in society. As you remember, the war ends, and at least 12 million people get decommissioned from the war effort, many of whom are getting shipped back to the ports of the Bay Area as they're coming back to civilian life. So there's these increased surges in people who need work, but as the war economy winds down, people are getting laid off. So there's this increasing amount of people who are unemployed. And against that, the bosses, the ruling class, remembered what had happened at the end of World War I, and they really wanted to push again what they called their open shop drive. They wanted to basically crush labor, they wanted to crush unions, and they wanted to go back to calling the shots, because the conditions during World War II had been kind of locked in. There were wage controls and price controls, and there was a tripartite part of the government between labor, the companies, and the government that kind of set those wages and prices and things like that. Well, when World War II ended, those regulations lifted. So the price...
Okay, so just real quickly, I just want to plug that they're called Labor Video. It's all one word and it's all lowercase. Labor Video on YouTube. The video is called 74th Anniversary of Oakland General Strike and Lessons for Today with Gifford Hartman. In the description, it says the last general strike in the United States started in Oakland on December 1st, 1946. Labor historian and researcher Gifford Hartman talks about 1945 to 46 strike wave, the issues in the strike, and how it was betrayed. He also discusses the issues then that are relevant today as tens of millions of workers and their families face dire and desperate conditions. The interview was done by Workweek's Steve Zeller on October 29, 2020, so it's a couple days old. And then there's a bunch of links to different sources of material and stuff. So I just wanted to give you a heads up and let you know, please go sub Labor Video. They're a fucking great channel for pro-labor, consistent pro-labor, like solid, no fucking around pro-labor material. But anyway, and I wanted to point out, I don't know how well you can make it out in the video, but behind him, dude's got a framed picture of Joe Hill. So, I mean, he's at the very, very least wobbly friendly, but he must be a wobbly. But he's got... it's actually kind of a version of this picture. This is a great book, by the way. But yeah, I mean, it's a dude with... I just had to point out because he's got freaking Joe Hill behind him. But I'm going to let it go and shut my mouth and let this guy share a little bit of proper leftist revolutionary history.
Controls were lifted, prices shot up. The wage controls were lifted, and the bosses wanted to keep wages down. And that was one of the main tensions that actually created the impetus for this strike wave. Waves is in the plural, but also what ended up resulting in a series of general strikes in various cities. And so the anger that was really catalyzed by this ruling class attack on working class conditions was one of the forces that drove the strikes. But then people still remembered the 30s. And, you know, I'm sure you talk about it on your show. The 30s was this incredible time of just insurgencies, factory occupations, waves of strikes in the midst of the Great Depression. When the working class was facing some of the worst conditions in history, 1933, there was 24.9% unemployment. So 1 of 4 people were out of work. People fought back. And you know, refuting the mythology that the New Deal was Roosevelt's benevolence, it wasn't true. The working class pushed Roosevelt to concede and buy social peace with the New Deal. That was still in the living memories of people. So when we come into 1946, we're facing people with a living memory of struggle. Some of it had really been dampened down during World War II, but then when all the regulations that had kind of allowed people to kind of survive through the sacrifice of World War II were lifted, and the ruling class really did go to attack, people fought back. And let me just give you some facts. So there were strikes that started at the end of World War II. They were oil workers, coal miners, textile workers, farm implement manufacturers, electrical worker, meat packing workers, packing house workers, and they were just striking across the country. So that began after World War II ended. And as we entered the year 1946, there was one of the biggest single industry strikes in U.S. history. 750,000 steelworkers went out on strike, and in January of 46, and that just rolled over. There were strikes by coal miners, 2 different kinds of coal, the bituminous coal and the soft coal. They both went out at the same time. Railroad workers went out on strike. And it nearly created a general strike because the main source of energy still was coal, and the railroad was the main form of transportation. So with no energy and no transportation, the economy almost ground to a halt. So workers were generally winning the strikes. The bosses were increasing wages, and the fight was really intensifying. Now, the coal strike in the winter of 1945-46 was so intense that Truman threatened to bring in troops to operate the coal mines. And the coal miners said, yeah, let's see the soldiers try and mine coal with bayonets. It didn't work. So the coal miners had been one of the most militant sectors who all through World War II actually didn't abide by the no strike pledges and continued to strike. So we have this whole setting where the country's volatile, there's strikes breaking out everywhere. But then the November 1946 elections, there was a pushback. The Republicans won both houses of Congress for the first time since 1930. And so there's this reaction to what had been happening. So the Republicans want to rein it in. They want to regulatorily rein in the working class. But at the same time, people are in their factories, people are in the streets, they're protesting. So there were general strikes in 6 different cities. Oakland was the last of that.
General strikes in 6 cities.
Connecticut, machinists, then there were transportation workers in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, municipal employees who worked in Houston, Rochester, New York, also people who worked in public utility, electrical workers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then finally we come to Oakland.
And so,
and just for anyone who watching now, which is basically just me and MR Red, and I'm sure MR Red knows what a general strike is. But for anyone who may watch this later, it's when not just labor unions, but often labor unions, but when members of different trades and communities and affinity groups all put down the tools and strike at the same time. It's when not just the plumbers, it's the plumbers and the carpenters and the longshoremen, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all in solidarity with each other. And I haven't seen that in my lifetime. That hasn't happened in my lifetime in the United States. And that's what that would be is, it's not a goal we should strive for as an end goal necessarily, but it really is emblematic of a strong leftist foundation if you can actually pull off a general strike like that and do it in 6 different cities, because that's how we defeat capitalism, is when all the workers of the world strike in solidarity together against the ruling class bosses. It's not just picketing and saying, oh, I won't work. It's just saying, no, you can't rule us anymore, you couple thousand fucking sociopathic fucking monsters. So that's why I'm so impressed with this. I mean, I know this isn't like a super frillsy video here, but like that moment in history is we've had a way stronger leftist foundation in this country before, which means we can have it again, right?
Downtown Oakland used to be the hub of the East Bay. It's where everybody went to shop. And, from the pre-war period, and this is just immediately after World War II, not many people had cars. So if anybody wanted to shop, they'd either jump on a bus or jump on a streetcar and go to downtown Oakland. And still today, the heart of downtown Oakland is the intersection where Broadway and Telegraph converge in a triangle that's called Latham Square.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on both sides of Latham Square, there were 2 department stores. On one side was the Conn's department store, which was the biggest department store in all of Oakland. It was a multiple-story building. The building's still there. It's called the Rotunda Building. It had as many as 800 employees, and they were striking for things that classically people were fighting for across the country in this whole strike wave, and that was stable conditions, higher wages, a union, just some protections against just the egregious practices of management. But one important thing is stability. At the time, in the basement of the Conn's department store, there was something called the Ready Room, which is basically like a shape-up. And the classic story in the waterfront where longshore workers would have to go in the morning and be picked out based on favoritism, based on not fighting for their rights or being troublemakers. Similar conditions in the basement of the department store. Mostly women clerks were working there. They'd show up in the morning. Some had their departments where they worked, but if there was a shortage in this huge department store, people would go to the basement and they would just be waiting for work. And if there was no work, they would just be sent home with no pay. And so the mostly women who were working as clerks in the department store knew that if they had a union contract, they could determine that everyone had a stable job with benefits and were assured of work. So that was Conn's. Across the street was a men's department store called Hastings that had 100 employees. Hastings was 100% union. They voted to join Local 1265 of the Specialty and Retail Clerks Union, and Conn's was a majority. It was a huge department store. I said a number, I'm not really sure. I know they had hundreds of workers, and a majority, overwhelmingly, over 90% of the workers had signed union cards. And both management of both stores refused to negotiate with the union, because at the time there were 22 department stores in downtown Oakland, and they had something called the Retail Merchants Association. The Retail Merchants Association, using the tactics of the post-World War I open shop, said they wouldn't negotiate with any union until every department store was organized, which was an impossible task because there were large department stores, like I said, Conn's. There was something that existed well into the later half of the 20th century called Capwell's, H.B. Capwell's, other big department stores, but also smaller, like Hastings, specialty stores. And they knew because of the uneven size of the different stores, it would be really impossible to have unionization of all the stores. So they knew that was a stalling tactic by management, and the unions persevered.
So the unions actually decided to go out on strike. So the first department store to go out on strike was Hastings. The men's department store went out on October 23rd. The entire staff went out. As I said, it was 100% unionized. Across the street, the bigger multi-level department store, Conn's, went out on October 31st. At this time, the strikes were incredibly effective. There was an adage that old militants would talk about from the 30s into this period, that when somebody set up a picket line, it was as effective as a barbed wire fence. And largely, the working class community of Oakland did not cross the picket line. And so remember, this is at the end of October. So the strike continues through October. Largely popular. There was nationwide agitation among workers. And then other groups started to support it. The NAACP supported the strike. The Labor Council supported the strike. The Building Trades Council stopped working on elevators and stopped doing renovations to the department stores. They honored the picket lines. They honored the strike. The Labor Council took up a fund. Workers gave $1 a month towards the strike fund, and the strike was succeeding. And through all of November, we get to a period that's just like right now. It's right pushing up onto the Thanksgiving holiday, which was even back then was the beginning of the Christmas shopping season. The shelves were running empty in those two department stores, and they realized that they had to stock up for the Christmas rush. But they had a strike going on, and people weren't crossing the picket line, and Teamsters weren't crossing the picket line and weren't delivering goods into the stores. So as I said, the shelves were empty. So management, in collusion with the city elite in Oakland, decided that they were going to break the strike. They were going to scab her through the picket lines. And what they did is, in the AM hours of December 1st, 1946, they hired a company. It was called GI Trucking. It was from Los Angeles. It was notorious for strike breaking. And there was even a reputation that they came armed. Never found out if that happened or not. But so starting in the AM hours of Sunday, December 1st, the police, with multiple police cars, police motorcycles, started escorting scab trucks through the streets of Oakland to restock Conn's and Hastings department stores. Now, they also pulled a kind of a shell game. People were expecting the trucks to bring some of the goods from the south, but there used to be a department store on Shattuck Avenue in downtown Berkeley called Hinks, and they had a warehouse in West Berkeley, and that's where they stored the surplus goods that they were going to put in these two downtown Oakland department stores. And so people protested, and there were phone trees, and unionists and militants and just working class people who lived within proximity to downtown Oakland came and tried to stop the breaking of the strike, and they were unsuccessful because the police forces were just numerically greater than they were. So that was Sunday. There was even an incident where a cop tricycle ran over a worker who was there protesting. His name was Newton Selvage. He was sent to the hospital. And the word-of-mouth news of that just angered people. So not only did they run over somebody and send him, a worker who was protesting in solidarity, send him to the hospital, the anger catalyzed. And so the next morning was Monday, December 2nd, the first workday after the weekend. And people decided, many of whom decided not to go to work.
Good.
There was no official declaration of a strike, but the streetcar drivers who would converge at that triangular intersection of Broadway and Telegraph, it was really the hub of the transportation system of the whole East Bay. The streetcar system was called the Q route system. They came, they saw that there were still police picket lines. There was still more, the next day there were still more scab goods and scabbing attempts to break the strike attempted, and the streetcar drivers refused to cross through, pulled the controls out of their streetcars. The streetcars lined up on the track, disabled. They got out. Buses pulled over to the curb and said, "What's going on?" People explained that there was still a police cordon trying to break the strike. The militant transportation workers said, "We don't break strikes. We don't cross picket lines. We refuse to move through that triangular intersection where the two department stores are across from each other." And they said the police cordon was a picket line and they wouldn't cross.
Fucking A.
No sooner did that happen as just regular people riding the transportation to get to work. This is in the AM hours of Monday morning, were stranded.
Truck drivers saw the stranded streetcars. They saw the buses lining up, people coming out, converging on the corners of the streets. They parked their trucks and refused to move too. And so really the spark that began the Oakland general strike was on Monday, December 2nd, when people just refused to work and transportation workers refused to go through police cordons, considering it a picket line. So that really sparked it. People said maybe 10,000 people gathered in downtown Oakland, bolstered the picket lines of the
So it's just, I want to say, you know, well, for one, fuck Vouch. I don't know, just somebody spams and like, don't come into my chat trying to like dox people and shit. I'm just not. Fuck Vouch. I'm not with that dude. I know there's a bunch of like new controversy about him, and I just don't care. I just always thought he was a fucking idiot who didn't read and had absolutely nothing positive to offer. And like, I think the second or third time I watched a stream of his well over a year ago, like someone asked him a clarification question and he went the fuck off on him, called him all kinds of bullshit names. And I was like, oh, okay, so this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and flips the fuck out when he's even mildly challenged. And it's just abundantly clear that he doesn't read. But that doesn't mean I need to know his personal info and shit. But I wanted to point out, like, what he's saying, like, oh, that the way the fucking trolleys stopped and the bus workers and then all the people that were on it, they didn't just go like, hey, fucking, why aren't you running the bus? They were like, oh, that's what's going on? Oh, okay, yeah, there's a strike. Okay. Like, it was generally understood in the working class at that time that, like, when the bosses fucking pushed you too far, when the pigs fucking went too far, the workers rallied together. That was a common, almost just accepted, understood thing, that was an option. That's not necessarily the case today. I don't think we can say that when we find out about what Bezos is doing right now. Like what you were saying, MR Red, but like the way that they're abusing their fucking workers right now in a pandemic at Christmas time. God, we could... If all the different trades and all the different working class people could get behind the people of Amazon and just put a halt to it all, man, the power that would yield. Anyway. And there's not a whole lot of images that they're provided. Again, and you asked earlier, it's labor video, MR Red. One word, labor video is the name of this channel. But yeah, we'll get back into it. But again, it's just... the way they instantly, at the drop of a hat, like the trolley stopped and people are like, what's the deal? And they're like, oh. And they find out that what the deal is, the cop running people over and they don't want to break strike. Just everyone just kind of got on board. And then he just said, what, 10,000 people out in the street in Oakland? Fuck, man.
Department stores. And from there, that evening, the Labor Council met near unanimously. There was some dissent, but near unanimously decided to call for a general strike for the whole East Bay. So officially, the Oakland general strike began on December 3rd, a Tuesday, in the AM hours. So when work started, it was a general strike. So it ended up affecting 142 unions. One union was given an exception. It was the Milk Wagon Drivers Union, something, I can't remember specifically the name. They figured that milk was needed for hospitals and for young children. So they allowed that union to have an exception to continue work, but nearly every other, especially all the AFL unions, shut down work.
Fucking A.
Now, the CIO didn't come on board, and that was a weakness. Yet, wherever the AFL set up a picket line, if there was a big facility that may have had people from both union federations, the CIO workers did not cross. So, for example, there was newspapers in the East Bay, and for each newspaper, they set up a picket line. Mostly the people who worked in the press room were CIO. They didn't cross. And one effectiveness of the 46 general strike is every East Bay newspaper was shut down. So
listen to this. This is a
that
trip.
Would be the, if you just bear with me for just a second, and give me just a second. This will take me a second.
Can you imagine
So
MSNBC, CNN, Fox striking?
Shut down.
Like,
Picket
what?
line in front, shut down. Alameda Times Star, picket line in front, shut down.
Wow.
Post Inquirer in downtown Oakland, picket line went up, it shut down. Most importantly, the real power brokers of the Republican Party that ran the city of Oakland in 1946 were the Nolan family. Some people have compared them to kind of like the right-wing Republican Kennedys. They were a dynasty. The father and the son were both in and out of Congress, in and out of power. And they basically were the ruling class of Oakland. And they had a newspaper called the Oakland Tribune, and that was shut down. So one of the most effective things of the 46 Oakland general strike is not only not allowing the mainstream corporate press to malign the strike. Every newspaper was shut down, but every business was shut down. And so, kind of the more inspiring things that happened is people started gathering on street corners and started directing traffic. And they made a rule. Restaurants were going to close. Bars could stay open if they didn't serve hard liquor, and they put the jukebox out on the street. And people were actually dancing on the streets of Oakland in the early AM hours as they began the 46 Oakland Strike. So there was these really inspiring parts of it. Now, it continued, and like I said, it was effective. Every AFL union in the East Bay effectively shut down. Anytime there was a picket line in front of a workplace that involved CIO workers, it shut down. The East Bay Highway, East Shore Highway was called at the time. They set up picket lines at the border of Berkeley and the south end at San Leandro. It shut down any transportation. Trucks tried to come into Oakland. They were turned away. So it was incredibly effective. And the strike continued. The weakness, and this is probably the analysis, is the weakness of the strike is workers made it happen, but behind the scenes, the people in the Labor Council negotiated, and they negotiated with the city elite at something called the Athens Club, which is a private gentleman's club behind closed doors. And there was a news blackout. Nobody knew on either side how the negotiations proceeded. And the management, represented by just the people from the various factions of the ruling class, didn't budge. And it continued officially on Tuesday, officially on Wednesday. It was raining. Despite the rain, people still continued to flood into downtown Oakland. Months before, they reserved
in the thousands,
Oakland
in the
Municipal
rain.
Auditorium. Later, it was called the Kaiser Auditorium. Now it's the huge auditorium that sits empty across the street from Laney College. They booked one of the big rooms there, and they were going to have a labor meeting to discuss the strike in the early days of the strike. They didn't realize that it would be a general strike meeting, and 15,000 people fit into the auditorium to capacity.
Look at that. For a meeting.
And about another 10,000 people stood outside in the rain listening to the meeting over loudspeaker.
Unfucking
And
believable.
so people, talked about the issues of the strike. Harry Lunderberg from the Sailors Union of the Pacific.
We can get there, fam.
Spoke truth.
We can get there again.
The people running the strike were the grand finks that ran the city. And he even said, what we should do is go down there and take City Hall apart. And people who were there, the witnesses said, if he really would have meant it, people would have gone down to City Hall and
right?
demolished the building brick by brick.
Right.
Well, they didn't do that. But there was an anger.
Didn't stop him from accusing him of it, though, right? Or wanting to.
Unfortunately,
Same as
didn't
today.
have a plan to continue the strike. They knew the next day was Thursday. They knew that the CIO for Alameda County threatened that if they didn't end the strike and negotiated in the favor of the workers at the department stores, the CIO was going out. And that was kind of a leverage that kind of created a certain fear, because the CIO ran things like public utilities, the water, the power. And they even threatened, like, if you don't settle the strike, we'll just shut off water and power. And they never got to that, because in the middle of the night, between Wednesday, December 3rd, and Thursday, December 4th, there was a deal that was negotiated. And because there wasn't really any rank-and-file participation, unlike the 34 San Francisco general strike, where there was a strike committee that included a few militants like Harry Bridges, among the few truly working-class militants who were rank-and-filers, the negotiators for Oakland, for the Alameda Labor Council, were almost all the higher-level staff people with no input from the rank and file. The deal they cut was
That's a problem.
essentially, just to call it what it was a sellout.
Fucking A.
They got a note from the city elite to say that they would never again use the police to break a strike. No big deal about what was going to happen with the workers at the stores. Now, there was some people undermining the strike. The Teamsters rank and file were incredibly militant. back in 34, the first union that literally went out on strike to create the 34 San Francisco General Strike were the Teamsters. They actually went out a day before everyone else. They had a history of militancy. You know, some of the militants were still driving trucks in 46.
Yep.
But higher up, especially at the top, the leader of Teamsters for the West Coast was a guy named Dave Beck. And Dave Beck broke his teeth breaking the 1919 Seattle General Strike. He played a really negative role when the Teamster militants were making the 34 waterfront strike on the West Coast and the San Francisco General Strike in July of 1934. He tried to undermine it. And Dave Beck, representing the Teamster leadership out of Seattle, floated a story in the newspaper that he floated it on Wednesday night and made the papers on Thursday morning. Banner headlines in all the newspapers outside of Alameda County, like in the San Francisco Daily, said strike settled.
Right.
Like declaring that the
I
strike
bet
was
the
settled
rank and
by a
file must have just been
union
losing
leader
their shit
telling
completely.
the press that the strike was settled. It took the wind out of the sails of the strikers, and it really undermined the strike.
Wow. See how
So
easy?
to kind of bring the end to the story is, sadly, the strike ended in failure. Yet, you know, there's a lot of takeaways, and the takeaways would be that people rose up, people acted on
Fucking
a
A.
spirit of solidarity.
No matter what, it's a
which
success.
drove
It
the
doesn't
strike
matter that.
was a sense of class consciousness. This whole idea, age-old, going even back.
No,
to
it
the
didn't
19th
save the
whether in
fucking
19th
world for
century,
labor.
An injury to one
And it
is
was
a concern
undermined
of
by a
all, or
fucking
an injury to
scumbag.
one is, an injury to all is when people felt that their fellow workers were being attacked, they united and they rose up.
That's right.
And it was so powerful, like I said, it was the sixth culminating citywide general strike of 1946 that the political establishment really panicked and more strategized. And in May of 1947, they passed the Taft-Hartley Act. And I'm sure you've talked about Taft-Hartley.
Yeah.
Taft-Hartley was a way to illegalize the kind of general strikes, solidarity actions, and the kind of actions that actually define that whole post-war period. They made, mass picketing became illegal. They did crazy things to undermine unions. It was really the beginning of the Cold War, and you had people in unions had to sign anti-communist loyalty oaths. Allowed the president to declare an 80-day.
That power terrified the power structure.
And strikes and pushed them back.
Working class flexing itself terrified the mechanisms of power.
To enforce the provisions of the labor laws, which had kind of been murky and not really clear before. And it really put the unions under the microscope of government and the courts. And it really did, as a ruling class attempt to regulate and to make the kinds of strikes that had been happening in this long period illegal. So I do say the legacy is that the last strike yet was 46. We had other actions. I'd say we could say in 2006 when mostly immigrant workers rose up against the Sensenbrenner Act, H.R. 4437, and millions of people for May Day, 2006, I'd say that was a one-day general strike. And so I'd say that was a general strike of another sort. They're still possible. And again, as you began the show, if Trump tries to pull some kind of crazy, not following the provisions of the law and secession to the next president, it's a tool. Now, I always live by this adage: is there's no illegal strike, there's only unsuccessful strikes. So
and I just want to clarify something too. Fam, it's like it's one thing for me to get on here and say to all 2-3 of you that we should do this general strike thing and we should have and it'd be great and be in awe of it, which I am in awe of it, but can't glorify that without also pointing out that there's like massive blowback when you get up in the face of power like that. It's gonna fucking punch you back. Like makes me think of the Panthers, the Black Panthers. Sure, they did the stuff when they went out and they did the police patrols with the guns. Well, they just made all kinds of laws that made it impossible for them to do that anymore. But then when they started feeding poor kids and empowering people within the black community, whoa, man, they murdered a bunch of them, and just brought all the mechanisms of the slave patrol power structure down on them. And it's one thing to learn from the actions and the way that revolutionaries have, poked at the fucking beast. But we have to be also as acutely aware of the response from that beast when you fucking poke it. You have to know that it's gonna fucking lash back at you, right? But when we can look back at these other struggles, when we can look at what Hoover and COINTELPRO did to the Panthers, and when we can look at the way strikebreakers and the mechanisms of power lashed out at the labor movement, we can learn from them. We can learn their tactics, and we can learn how to avoid it. We can learn how to make sure that some dude with a questionable fucking past within the Teamsters Union can't come up and negotiate a deal in the middle of the night. I think that, we could build a leftist foundation that wouldn't allow that type of shenanigans, tomfooleries to go on behind the backs of the rank and file like that, right? I'm not trying to discourage people from taking revolutionary acts, but I'm trying to discourage you from doing it if you're separated from full understanding of what the repercussions are. All right. Anyway, there's only a few less than 10 minutes left in this, and we'll let them get back into it and wrap it up, and then we'll maybe play a music video and kind of get out of here. But we'll start wrapping it up here pretty soon too. I only wanted to go 2 hours, and we're a little over 2 hours. But let's let this finish out. We'll play a Fang video, and then we'll get out of here.
I think a general strike is still within the toolkit of the working class because it's based on solidarity, and I think it's still possible today. And I think if we looked at what was effective in 46 and then the previous wave, 5 other general strikes in 46, the big strikes that happened in 34, there's this whole history of people fighting back we can draw upon.
We're talking with Gifford Hartman, and thanks for that presentation on the Oakland General Strike and what happened in the Oakland General Strike. And maybe you can talk about the corporatization of the trade unions, because you mentioned the Taft-Hartley, which was passed by the U.S. government, the Democrats and Republicans, and it emasculated the union's right for secondary boycotts for solidarity pickets, said it was illegal. At the same time, you had a witch hunt, anti-communist witch hunt, purge of CIO unions, of leftists, and the AFL-CIO, which, why don't you talk about that? Because AFL-CIO, what kind of trade union federation is it? Because it did support corporatism, collaboration, labor management partnerships, which still exist today. It supported U.S. and military operations around the world. You think the formation of the AFL-CIO was kind of parallel to the witch hunts?
Yeah, no, I think they went hand in hand. And also the CIO was full of radicals. The radicals built the CIO in the 30s. And by this time period, the post-World War II period, as the government attacked, first with regulations and making, like you said, all the kinds of effective solidarity actions illegal, they went after the unions. And they went after the unions with McCarthy and all the kind of the Red Scare witch hunt tactics, so much so that they actually, the loyalty, very few unions stood up to the government and, stood behind the Constitution that guaranteed the rights of all kinds of things like free speech. And many of the unions just buckled under and signed the loyalty oaths and purged the leftists and purged the radicals. And very few resisted. And by 1949, 1950, during that period, 10 unions left the CIO for refusing to sign the loyalty oath. Only 2 remain. One is the ILWU, which has maintained its independence and its militancy ever since.
Yeah.
The other also is an independent, the United Electrical Workers Union, also continued and has continued as an independent union. Only 2 really lasted those purges, the Red Scare purges.
I gotta say real quick,
others.
I attended an ILWU public organizational meeting during. It was right after Charlottesville, and Joey Gibson was coming to San Francisco and Berkeley. Well, actually, there was a one of the Say No to Marxism in the Bay things on Sunday, and on Saturday, Joey Gibson was going to be in San Francisco. Well, he showed up. There was him, Tiny, and one other person, and they did a press conference that said that they were canceling it. They made some bullshit excuse, but the reason was there was about, I don't know, thousands. I can't remember, like literally probably between 2,000 and 5,000 people at least showed up. It may even be more than that. I would have to check the records on it. It was massive. And, but prior, in the build up to that, I went to a meeting for the ILWU, and they talked about organizing for that, and they talked about some in-house stuff too, and some racism, finding things in their lockers and racist shit within their own workplace and stuff like that, and calling it out. And it was like every single fucking person that was a member of that union was someone I just personally would never want to piss off, ever. And there were a lot of them in that room. These were big fucking longshoremen motherfuckers, man, and women, and across the board. I don't care, gender wise. Serious, and not fucking around even in the littlest bit. And they had seen what happened in Charlottesville, and they just knew that Joey and Patriot Prayer were attached to that. This alt-right thing was the same thing. It had been there'd been all this shit going on in East Bay, and so they were aware of it, and like, you know, the community was. And it's not the only time the ILWU came out against the alt-right, but yeah, it just made a huge impression on me, and I'll never forget, like, going, oh my God, Joey Gibson has no fucking idea. And nothing happened. I mean, because there were so many thousands of people that came out, we completely won the day, and the next day in Berkeley too. And anyway, so big ups to the ILWU.
Formed, and they conformed to all those things you said about the corporatization. It took some time. It took a generation or more for them to kind of have, labor management partnerships, which really comes out of like destroying the radical factions within these unions. And it's also part of a larger social attacks on civil rights and things like that. And so it really is, this is the beginning. This is the period where it begins. And then by the time we get to the last probably period of strikes, maybe the late 60s into the early 70s, the militancy was mostly led by militant rank and file, because the union leaderships had become so conformist and so willing to go along with management and play nice and not use the strike weapon for what it was possible, and really relied on the threat of strikes. And then we reached the point where Reagan gets elected, and when he comes to power in 1980, the air traffic controllers, PATCO, go out on strike. He threatens them. And without the other unions or other workers showing them solidarity, he's able to fire 11,000. That really set a tone for his regime of being anti-labor and attacking unions and attacking the working class. And I would say it really hasn't recovered. That, since then we've seen uprisings and some inspiring strikes, but largely we've seen the labor movement kind of killed off, and especially the strike weapon being taken away. It still exists, but it just isn't used. I would say a couple of years ago, the West Virginia teachers really showed what's possible, but they had a heritage of coal miners striking in the late 70s, early 80s. So I'd say it's really exceptional, but I think that we have to revive the strike. And I think, like looking at this history is a way to look at the tools and the effective tactics that actually made these massive strikes possible. Because if we're going to challenge the ruling class, we're going to challenge the Trump administration, it's not going to be a strike here and there. It's going to have to be something coordinated, much like a general strike on a larger scale.
And we're speaking with Gifford Hartman. He's a labor historian. Also, the question of the recent action by the Vermont AFL-CIO to take a vote to have a general strike if Trump refused to leave office. Richard Trumka, the president of the AFL-CIO, sent an order to the Vermont State AFL-CIO saying it was illegitimate and improper for them to take a vote to support a general strike if there was a coup. So, I mean, you can imagine, if there's a coup in the United States, it's illegal for your union to take action to fight the coup. You think, who is Richard Trumka representing? Because if we do face a coup in this country, the idea of the national general strike has some real relevance.
That's a good question. I can't answer who he is. I just know what he represents, and he represents kind of compromise and an ability to kind of like not put the resources that the working class has, or that we have, the potential of solidarity. He doesn't want to use it. But again, I think that goes back to this whole post-World War II period where the bureaucracies of the unions became bloated and disconnected from the needs of the rank and file, but they also lost this heritage of striking. Trump guy I know was involved in the 79 Pittston strike, so I know that he has that heritage, but as he's risen up in the labor bureaucracies to the head of the AFL-CIO, I think he's lost any connection to the needs of the working class. I think there's a large disconnect. Is the partnership between the Democratic Party and labor is just, I'm sure he's represents a faction of that, he doesn't want to displease his allies in the Democratic Party by doing something that would defend the working class.
And one of the issues the American working class faces now is that Biden, if he does take office, says he doesn't want national health care, even though millions of people have lost their health care benefits. There is massive gig economy now with contract workers and Amazon. Amazon has hired hundreds of thousands of workers who are temporary part-time workers, no benefits, no rights. Why are the capitalists so afraid of general strikes happening? Are they worried that these millions of workers who are unorganized will join unions and they won't be afraid of joining a union?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like you just said it. It's like, look at all the people who work as independent contractors, who would be affected by some militant action. I mean, what is the union density now is around 10%. So the 90% of the working class might rise up and might actually form organizations to defend themselves. Like you said, here, as we know, in California, Prop 22 passed, which codifies this independent contractor status for rideshare drivers, the Uber and Lyft drivers. They went on strike on May 8th, 2019, a couple days before Uber's IPO, that sent fear through the executive suites of people who run these gig economy companies. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid that we'll get together and we'll get together with the people who are falsely considered not working class with everyone else and the effectiveness of everyone getting together. Now, I'm afraid because, as you know, Kamala Harris's brother-in-law is Tony West, who's the lead lawyer for Uber. So, thankfully, rhetorically, Kamala Harris was against Prop 22, the initiative that made gig economy workers codified them as independent contractors. And Biden was against 22, but what's he going to do in office? I don't see him as being a friend of the working class.
I don't either, at all.
Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, was neutral on Proposition 22, even though the unions had supported him, and he actually signed AB 5. And following the passage of 22, you had Roma Lois, who was removed from the Teamsters Union for corruption and taking money for other officials and attacking union democracy. He said he wanted to make a deal with Uber and Lyft. And I understand in New York, these ride-share companies have made a deal with the machinist union to have like a company union where they collect dues from Uber and Lyft and supposedly represent the workers. So this idea of company unionism, is that where some of the unions are going at this point in this country?
Yeah, they've been doing it for a long time. Again, I think you said it at the beginning of the interview, just labor management partnerships where they act as one unit, as one entity, as though the union leadership somehow is to impose labor discipline and act as proxies for the boss, and that's wrong.
The discussion and debate on the general strikes, you think that that's the kind of situation we're going into in this period, that more and more workers see that they have to use their collective power of the entire working class against class? You think that's where we're going in this country?
I mean, I think so. I think that,
so.
We could see it during the beginning of the pandemic with Amazon workers doing wildcat actions all over from Staten Island to Minnesota to Southern California to here in the Bay Area. Some Amazon workers did some, essentially, they weren't unionized, but they're, it's a wildcat action. It's self-organized strikes. I think it's going to happen. I think it's already been happening. I think the teachers, like I said, in West Virginia and elsewhere, then in Kentucky and North Carolina, Colorado and Arizona, and then in Los Angeles and in Oakland set the tone. And I think striking's coming back, but I think it's as these strikes generalize and they could link up, I think that would be a general strike. And I think it's not only possible, I think it's something we need to push for. I think
we do.
As we face, we know that Biden's not going to be much friendlier to labor. Well, because anybody's going to be friendlier to labor than Trump. Biden's not a friend. Right. He's a moderate. He's a neoliberal.
Right.
He's going to bring back some of the worst attacks on the working class guys, more smoothly than Trump did. But yeah, this is our only alternative: is joining together and finding ways to fight back.
Word.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for joining us on Work Week. We've been talking with Gifford Hartman. He is a labor historian, researcher. And how can people find out more about the Oakland General Strike, Gifford?
There's links that are on the Labor Fest page. We do the walk at the end of the summer, every July, and I've done it since 2006. There's some good links on the Labor Fest website where you could search to the Oakland General Strike walk, and then there's a couple links there.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us on Work Week, and let's commemorate this Oakland General Strike by remembering the importance of it and the value of collective action by the entire working class. So thanks for joining us on Work Week.
Word. That was very cool. So labor video. So I said I was going to play a Fang video, but I'm actually going to play a guillotine truck video. This is the Demodicks didn't do shit. And I'm going to play it because I happen to know for a fact that the footage of the brother talking in this video is from a labor video.
We talked about the governor. Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker of the House before, when Obama was the President of the United States. Well, Obama didn't do shit. And Pelosi didn't do shit. In fact, Obama promised that the first year of his administration, he was going to do immigration reform. Mentiroso, he's a liar. Pelosi and Obama were in office, in control, when Black Lives Matter started. I was part of Black Lives Matter. And when did Obama stand up for Black Lives Matter? When did Nancy Pelosi stand up for Black Lives Matter?
She didn't.
What a hypocrite! All of a sudden take a knee. That is an insult. And don't buy her bullshit. Because today, what is she doing right now for these children? So, my brother and I just got up here and talked about, next time you get a call to action, how about the next action we take? How about we go to Nancy Pelosi's house and call her ass out? Because she needs to be called accountable. She talks about she's progressive and she's liberal because, pura mierda habla. Chinga la migra. And chinga all these politicians who lie. You know what? All of a sudden, Brother Floyd, and everybody else started paying attention. And they started taking leads and running all this paraphernalia on them. But all of a sudden, there ain't no more marches. And all of a sudden, they're still talking about it. Let me give you a history lesson. Because I've seen it from one movement to another movement to another movement. These politicians become immune. And they just wait until people forget about it. Going out in the streets. They wait it out.
I know the fucking ice cream collection. Oh my god, that was disgusting, dude. Like, for real. An refrigerator that's as big as, some, homes I've lived in.
What kind of reform is going on for black people in the state of California? And what real kind of reform is going on in this country for black people? It was all talk. It was
all talk. They'll throw some crumbs out there and fund a few nonprofits, and they'll make a few changes. But are they talking about the educational system and revamping the educational systems for blacks to make sure that they succeed from Head Start to college? Are they talking about health for black people? Are they talking about economic development and entrepreneurship for black people? Are they talking about the children? It's not even on the agenda. So you know what? We got a lot of work ahead of us. A lot of work. Don't fall asleep. Don't get dormant. Do not rest. We have a long fight ahead of us.
Some G-Truck. All right, one more video. This is Fang, Minneapolis. And then we'll wrap it up and get out of here, fam. Oh shit, hold on. It always gotta turn it up. It always turns the volume down when it's videos on YouTube. I don't know if y'all noticed that before. On Thursday, May 28, 2020, the 3rd precinct of the Minneapolis Police Department was set on fire and burned by protesters following the murder of George Floyd. Come on. Fuck. Yo, that's annoying that's, hold on. That's really annoying that that bar is staying halfway through the screen. I would hope you would agree. Let's try and do this. We'll disconnect and reconnect so that we can play the video. Yeah. Here we go. Because it's worth it. Because it's a damn good video. The track is available from Die Laughing Records. All right, let's see. Come on. Not doing it. Damn it. So weird. I'm going to try one more time. And if not, I'm seriously going to give up. I've like literally never have issues with it casting like this. There it goes. And then, of course, it has to say that first. It's weird. And the reason I'm doing this, by the way, is because I still have weird audio issues. I got to get my audio issues figured out in OBS because I have to run everything through the mic. Oh. Well, and this is not the video I wanted to play. Unbelievable. One more time. Here we go. And we got to turn it up. There we go. On Thursday, May 28, 2020, the 3rd precinct of the Minneapolis Police Department was set on fire and burned by protesters following the murder of George Floyd by Minneapolis cops.
Let's
Really? Really? It just hates us. It just doesn't want this to work for us, man. What's up, Sammy Town? There you go. That's the Fang. They're not called the Fang. They're just called Fang. But rest in power, George Floyd. That's such a cool video. Yeah. Anyway. Hey. Thanks for hanging, fam. For real. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you had a good time. Maybe learned something. I don't know. But yeah. Thanks for hanging. Thanks to everybody in the P4P fam. Much love to you. Much love, respect, appreciation to literally anybody out there who gets out there and does whatever they can to make life better for fucking people. It matters and it's appreciated. MR Red, thanks for hanging as always and hanging through the whole fucking show. It's dope. Anyway, we will see you soon. I'm Reverend Aaron. This is the What the Fuck Report on Punks for Progress. And yeah, we'll see you next time.